Hello and welcome to my final capstone research project for the MSLM program here at University of La Verne, presented by myself, Alawna K Jones. This study aims to analyze the efficacy of authentic leadership on employee engagement within the workforce for the completion of Management 596 Organizational Research course. For today's overview, several key topics will be in discussion, leading with the purpose of the study, followed by the posed research questions, a literature review, a summary of the methodology used, results and analysis, conclusion and recommendations, and lastly, parting final thoughts. At the end of the presentation, an open forum will be available for any questions. The purpose of this study, as previously mentioned, aims to analyze the efficacy of authentic leadership on employee engagement within the workforce. As appointed by authors Mark Fotohabadi and Louise Kelly, authentic leadership is an emergent leadership concept that focuses on the moral, emotional, and transparent leadership dimensions. The responsibilities of said leader are to be willing to engage with others even when their views differ from one's own, which leads into the background of the problem. 3 critical areas were identified to further develop the background of the problem. First, research shows that there has been a dissatisfaction among employees experiencing developmental challenges. Generally, managers have missed opportunities to identify untapped talent, according to author Milham, which can negatively impact an employee's engagement. Next, Maria Pondor establishes that employees' perception of how their preferred way of working is typically challenged in comparison to how they are expected to work, based on the leader's perspective. For this reason, has led researchers to examine the downfall effects of the relationship presented between both employee and leader, which leads into the third and final problem at hand. Unauthentic and ineffective leaders can potentially aid to the disengagement of employees and an increase in job burnout rates for organizations. 2 research questions were posed to further guide the direction of this study. The first question states, why is the relationship between leadership effectiveness and employee engagement important? The relationship between leader and employee is essential for the structure of any organization. Without this tie, it is possible for the employee's engagement to decrease, as well as their performance when they don't feel engaged, supported, nor included, according to the author Anna Abbott. The second question states, what are the most current practices that leaders are implementing to improve employees' engagement? Jessica Tsu and Helena Cooper-Thomas state that leaders can improve their practices by providing a supportive, trusting environment, allowing employees to fully invest in their energies into their current work roles. By doing so, should help leaders to improve employee engagement and build a lasting relationship between both employee and leader. This literature review focuses on 3 main areas: leadership, employee engagement, and their relationship. Through a series of related events, a leader's response can determine the effectiveness of their practice, as the role of an effective leader consists of establishing values, reinforcing purpose, developing a vision, supporting a team, implementing change, communicating, and managing the growth of an organization through troubling times. Employee engagement is generally the harnessing of members within an organization who are expressive through cognitive, physical, and emotional ties to their role's performance. According to authors Alan Rogelberg, lastly, the relationship that ties both leadership and employee engagement together is derived from both leadership style and leadership development. Given the challenges of leadership development, the effects of those difficulties may lead to low employee engagement and the possibility of job burnout. To measure both quantitative and qualitative approaches for this study, a singular method was chosen. Online surveys were administered to nearly 150 participants in the United States via Qualtrics and Amazon Mechanical Turk, which are internet software programs. Sections of 2 surveys were utilized in survey creation to best capture the results of 4 categorical variables that would be identified later in this presentation. Each participant was asked to respond to a series of open-ended and closed-ended questions. Also, the participants were asked to complete a ranking of their answers based on a 5-point Likert scale of nearly 30 items. Survey participants took less than 5 minutes to complete the survey. Participants' responses were recorded anonymously, and a set demographic was chosen for the target audience. The demographic items for this study included gender, age, race and ethnicity, tenure, and service industries represented. Each participant met the standard requirements of being 18 years or older, held an overall work experience of over 5+ years, and currently work for or has previously worked in a for-profit service-based industry. The participants were offered a monetary reward if and when the survey was completed in its entirety. The data collected was then submitted through Intellectus Statistics, which is an internet software program, for further analysis. Participants were asked about what gender they best identify as. They were also provided with a section to write in their responses if they identified as other or preferred not to say. The results of the data show that 50.6% were females and 49.4% were males. As previously discussed, all participants had to be 18 years or older to fully participate in this study. From the data collected, majority of the respondents were between the age range of 35 to 44 years old, which represented 44.8%. As shown on the table below, the least represented age range in this data collection were seniors, who were 65+ years of age, who made up 1%, and younger adults ranging from 18 to 25 years of age, who made up 2.3% of the data. Race and ethnicity, as represented here in this bar chart, show that nearly 65% of participants identified as white Caucasian, and 33%, whom of which identified as Black and African American. Lastly, only 1.15% of individuals identified as Hispanic. To fully complete the survey, participants had to have an overall work experience history of 5+ years in a for-profit industry. So when participants were asked about their tenure, a skip logic was performed for those who did not meet this standard, forcing them to end the survey. For those who did meet or exceed a 5+ year overall work experience in a for-profit industry, they were permitted to continue on with the rest of the survey. Exemplified here in this pie chart, the most represented for-profit industry was customer service, which ranked within a 40.8 percentile. Next, informational technology, which was at 18.3%, and lastly, retail sales at 15.5%. The least represented service-based industry was data entry with a collective percentage of 1.4%. Based on overall observation, many participants from various industries were identified from the distribution of this survey. After submitting the collected data through Intellectus Statistics, an internet software program, several variables were used to create the following figures. Figure 1 shows that participants under the age of 25 have a typically low ranking of organizational commitment based on how they perceive their engagement at work, meaning fewer individuals are committed to stay at the organization they work for because their engagement is relatively low. As for Figure 2, the scatter plot shows that participants within the majority of the service-based industries feel supported by management. However, there are a few that identify as having low interaction supportiveness by management, which aids in the disengagement employees have within the customer service and data entry industry. Here, Figure 3 shows that out of all the 4 variables, work engagement, organizational commitment, informational adequacy, and interaction supportiveness, both white Caucasian and Black African American participants have a low stance on organizational commitment, whereas Hispanic participants have a relatively low stance on interaction supportiveness. From this, it can be inferred that all ethnicities from the study have collectively experienced some sort of demise in their work environment that has led by the actions of leaders or lack thereof. Lastly, Figure 4 shows a clear difference between the identified variables and age groups. In this figure, participants ranging from the age of 18 to 25 have ranked lower than other age groups in every categorical variable. Especially, results of this study can include that young employees have a troubling time feeling motivated, supported, and engaged with their work roles. To reiterate, the idea of this study was to identify any potential correlation between authentic leadership and its impact on employee engagement. Results from the study concur that there is a significant relationship between leadership and employee engagement, meaning that the actions of that said leader highly influence the leader's impact on their subordinates. The study also indicates that there is an opportunity for leaders to improve current practices to increase employee engagement, especially amongst white Caucasian individuals between the ages of 18 to 25. The recommendation is that a revision of the current training and development programs be designed and put into place to further redirect the relationship between leader and employee to a more effective and positive result, to increase employee engagement and job satisfaction rates overall. In addition, it is highly recommended to introduce the youth and millennial generation into leadership development roles at early ages to help them develop the necessary base skills needed to keep employee satisfaction and engagement during employment. The pragmatic advancement to influence the involvement of the youth to develop their future can further be beneficial eventually for establishing more effective forms of authentic leadership and the relationship they pose with their employees. One of my favorite quotes comes from a Bible verse that I was taught as a child. I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me. This quote can be found in the New Testament, Philippians chapter 4, verse 13. This verse has given me all the strength that I needed to persevere and keep pushing forward during my duration here in the MSLM program. Overall, the process of being admitted into University of La Verne was swift, but well worth it. In all honesty, I didn't have any initial expectations of this program. All I knew was that I wanted to dedicate every ounce of will and determination I had to persevere through the challenges and complete this program successfully. And as of today, I have completed one of the most difficult experiences of my life. So I'll leave you all with this. As poet Rupi Kaur states, "We've worked so hard to be here, we can afford to slow down and enjoy the view." I'd like to thank you all for viewing my presentation on the efficacy of authentic leadership on employee engagement. At this time, I'd like to open the discussion to any comments, thoughts, feedback, and/or questions.